Before the dawn of evil, before humanity's first steps on earth, the heavens were ruled by boundless goodness. Perfection reigned supreme, and every angel shone with a radiant light, their hearts overflowing with reverence for their Father, the Creator of all. Among the heavenly host, one angel towered above the rest, unmatched in splendor and magnificence. His name was Lucifer. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom, flawless in beauty. Lucifer was more than just an angel. He was the crown jewel of creation, God's magnum opus. Crafted by the Creator's mighty hand, Lucifer was the first of all beings, a masterpiece in form and spirit. He was unparalleled in intelligence, second only to God, and wielded power that eclipsed all others. In the celestial realms, his brilliance was the subject of awe, admiration, and devotion. Yet, perfection holds a fragile balance. You were blameless in your ways until wickedness was found in you. In the depths of his heart, pride took root, and that pride became the seed of rebellion. Lucifer's fall was not a mere stumble. It was a cataclysm that shook the heavens to their core. He descended into darkness, transforming into the Prince of Shadows, the corrupter of souls, the Lord of destruction. Lucifer became Satan, the harbinger of evil and suffering in the world. His betrayal left an indelible scar on paradise. Though light returned, it never quite glowed as brightly. Heaven, once unblemished, now bore the memory of its most tragic fall, a reminder that even the brightest stars can descend into darkness. Lucifer's story is a timeless testament. Greatness without humility is a path to ruin, and even the most radiant of beings can lose their light. How did we get here? How did a sea of peace transform into the seed of evil? Once, before tragedy marred the heavens, there was only harmony, a symphony of divine perfection. At its heart stood Lucifer, a being crafted to the pinnacle of beauty, wisdom, and power, a guardian cherub who walked on the holy mount of God amidst fiery stones that whispered the mysteries of creation. Heaven was a masterpiece of divine order, a realm where every being had purpose and place. At the highest rank burned the seraphim, living flames of purity, their voices an eternal anthem of love, crying, "Holy, holy is the Lord Almighty." Below them, the cherubim guarded the wisdom of eternity, their presence a shield against impurity. Archangels like Michael and Gabriel, warriors and messengers, carried the weight of decisive moments, their swords blazing with divine purpose. Closest to humanity were the angels, guardians of souls, guiding and protecting against the encroaching shadows of evil. In this celestial hierarchy, God crafted something extraordinary. From his infinite love emerged Lucifer, the morning star, a reflection of perfection itself. He was the seal of beauty, full of wisdom, a radiant being whose brilliance illuminated the heavens. But Lucifer was more than his appearance. He was a leader, a beacon. Other angels gravitated toward his charisma, drawn by the magnetic pull of his grace and authority. His presence inspired awe, and even the mighty Michael admired him. Lucifer led the choirs of heaven with fervor unmatched, his voice like a flame cutting through the cosmic night. When he sang, the heavens trembled with reverence, and the angels lifted their voices in perfect harmony under his direction. In Lucifer, God had created not only a masterpiece, but a leader who embodied the divine radiance of creation. But the story of Lucifer is not just one of creation. It is one of choice, of the perilous edge of free will. God did not create evil, he created perfection. Yet within perfection lay the seed of freedom, the power to choose. For a time, Lucifer was a reflection of God's glory. But then, slowly, imperceptibly, a shadow grew within him. It began as a fleeting thought, so small it seemed harmless. What if my light could shine brighter? What if my glory could be my own? These questions, quiet as whispers, rooted themselves in his heart. They grew, fed by his brilliance and the admiration of those around him. His duties, once performed with joy, became burdens. Each song of praise, each act of service began to feel like a cage. Gabriel noticed the change first. One day he approached Lucifer and said, "Brother, your light seems restless. What troubles you?" Lucifer's gaze, once warm and inviting, had grown distant. He replied with a faint, enigmatic smile, "There are things, dear Gabriel, even we cannot understand." Gabriel left, unsettled, sensing the storm brewing within his brother. Lucifer withdrew further, his once resplendent voice now silent in the heavenly choirs. Where he once led with passion, he now stood aloof, gazing upward with something more dangerous than pride, a quiet rebellion. The angels, attuned to the divine harmony, felt the shift. His light, once their guide, began to cast shadows. Heaven was a realm of love, but it was also a realm of freedom. Each angel had the choice to serve, to love, to exist in perfect harmony with God's will. And so, Lucifer made his choice. The spark of pride that had lingered in his heart flared into a consuming fire. He declared, "I will ascend above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High." The heavens trembled. Paradise, so serene, so perfect, felt its first rupture. That night, Lucifer's radiance changed. It was no longer the light of devotion, but the blaze of ambition. The morning star, who had been the beacon of God's glory, now sought a throne of his own. Lucifer's charisma became his weapon. He didn't deceive with lies. He spoke with passion, his words compelling enough to lead others astray. Many angels, dazzled by his vision, followed him, believing in the promise of a new light. They didn't see rebellion, they saw brilliance. Even in his fall, Lucifer's influence was staggering. His name, Lightbringer, wasn't empty flattery. It was a testament to the awe he inspired. But rebellion has its cost. The moment came when his ambition clashed with the divine order. Jesus, recounting the event, said, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." In an instant, the morning star was cast down, his light extinguished, his glory buried in darkness. Even now, Lucifer remains a paradox. His fall didn't erase the brilliance of his creation. In his rebellion, he still reflects the power of free will, the gift God gave even to the highest beings. His story stands as a chilling warning. Even perfection can fall when it turns inward, when it seeks to rise above its creator. The morning star, once the first to illuminate heaven, became the symbol of rebellion. And in his fall, we are reminded of the delicate balance between glory and humility, between the light of creation and the shadow of pride. Amid the stillness of sacred silence, God called to him. His voice, like the deep and steady current of a great river, carried both power and tenderness. It was a voice that had spoken stars into existence and angels into being. Now it addressed the one he had crafted in perfection. "Lucifer, my son, the seal of perfection," God began, his words filled with love and infinite patience. "I sense your thoughts drifting from me. In your heart, ideas are stirring, taking root, ideas that separate you from the eternal." Lucifer, radiant as always, met the Creator's gaze with a calm yet enigmatic expression. His glow was serene, but behind it, something restless stirred. "Father," he replied, his voice both reverent and questioning, "did you not create me to understand, to explore? There is no greater longing in me than to fathom the depth of your work. How could such a desire be wrong?" God's sadness was vast, though his countenance betrayed none of it. He was the infinite, the all-knowing, and his heart bore the weight of what was to come. He understood the fragility of the freedom he had woven into his creation, the delicate balance between love freely given and the dangers of pride. Even in the purest soil, he knew the seeds of ambition could sprout. "Lucifer," God said gently, his words like a balm, "your yearning to understand is noble, but your thoughts are veering inward. The light I placed within you has begun to seduce you. You see it not as a reflection of my love, but as a source unto itself." For a moment, Lucifer's gaze faltered. He looked down, his expression unreadable, though within him a fire began to smolder, a fire of pride and incomprehension. "My lord," he said finally, his tone steady, "everything I am comes from you. My light, it is your gift. How could I ever turn from you when my very being is your creation?" God's eyes, deep and unfathomable, were filled with tenderness. He saw what even Lucifer did not fully understand yet, that the morning star had begun to marvel at his own glory, to see it not as a means to honor his Creator, but as an end in itself. He had not yet fallen, but the warmth of his love was cooling, his devotion dimming. With mercy unbounded, God extended his hand toward him. His voice, both gentle and resolute, carried a plea that echoed across eternity. "My beloved son," he said, "remember the source of all light. Do not let your heart be consumed by shadows of your own making. If you turn back to me, your splendor will not fade, it will grow. Together in truth, we can achieve a glory far greater than any solitary thought, but only together." The Creator's words hung in the air like a hymn, a bridge between light and shadow, between the perfect order of heaven and the rebellion yet to come. Lucifer felt no peace, only a sting to his pride, sharp and insistent. It was a discomfort he could not fully name, yet it lingered like a shadow in his heart. Why did God warn him so often? Did the Creator doubt his loyalty? The questions gnawed at him. With a graceful bow he withdrew, yet inside him the distance between himself and God silently grew. Days turned into weeks, and Lucifer's desire to explore and understand consumed him. The devotion with which he once contemplated God began to wane. The angels still admired him, their voices rising in harmony under his direction, but his own heart was divided, his love no longer whole. Again God called him. "Lucifer," the Creator's voice resonated, a perfect blend of love and gravity. "I see the path you are treading, and it grieves me deeply. Your light, so radiant, is dimming, turning toward shadow. But it is not too late. Return to me, my son. Let the love within you bloom once more." This time, Lucifer did not listen. His heart, once so tender, was now hardened. A growing thirst for self-glory drowned out the Creator's plea. In his mind, he justified his rebellion. "Am I not deserving of more?" he thought. God, infinite in patience, did not force him to turn back. Instead, he let him go, offering a final warning. "I will never turn away from you," God said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "But you are free to choose." It was a moment of divine heartbreak. God's sorrow ran deep, an ancient sadness that only the eternal could bear. He knew he was losing his most beautiful creation. Yet even in the shadow of Lucifer's rebellion, his love remained steadfast. Even in his fall, I will love him, God thought, watching as Lucifer drifted further into the darkness. Heaven seemed to hold its breath. The celestial realms were filled with a weighty anticipation, a sense that something monumental was about to unfold. God, in his infinite wisdom, delayed the inevitable, granting Lucifer time to reflect, to repent, to return to the light. One day, God spoke to him again, his voice a gentle call through the storm growing in Lucifer's heart. "My son," he said tenderly yet firmly, "a great revelation is coming. When it arrives, the winds will be fierce, the storm in your heart like a tempest tearing through the heavens. You must prepare yourself, root yourself in obedience, for the test will be great." Lucifer listened, his expression solemn. He knelt before God, his voice quiet, yet resolute. "Father," he said, "whatever the test may be, I desire to obey. My love for you still burns. I cannot promise perfection, but I swear my heart longs to remain loyal." In those words was truth. Deep within, Lucifer genuinely wanted to remain faithful. Yet, In the hidden corners of his mind, pride continued to grow like a stubborn weed. Am I not the brightest of all, he wondered, the most unique, the most deserving? God, ever patient, gave him another chance. Once again he postponed the revelation, extending more time for Lucifer to seek humility and return to the light. Lucifer, he said with quiet strength, this test will be unlike anything you have faced. When the storm comes, and it feels as though the wind will carry you away, remember where your light comes from. Remember me. Lucifer's struggle echoed another story that would one day unfold in Eden. In that earthly paradise, Adam and Eve were given everything, a perfect world, a life in harmony with God. Yet like Lucifer, they were given a choice. The tree of knowledge of good and evil stood as a symbol of their freedom, and like Lucifer, they too heard the whisper of pride, "You will be like God." The same temptation gripped Lucifer. The morning star, the son of dawn, turned away from the light that gave him life and stepped into shadow. Free will, the greatest gift God had given, became the most fragile. In both Eden and heaven, pride opened the door to ruin, shattering the peace that once reigned. For the first time, heaven knew shadow. At last, the moment of revelation could no longer be delayed. God, who had spoken to Lucifer again and again with fatherly warnings, now gathered the hosts of heaven. Every angel, great and small, assembled in a radiant congregation. The firmament itself seemed to bow as the Creator's majesty shone brighter than ever before. Then, with a voice like soft thunder, God spoke, his words reverberating through the cosmos. "I will create a material universe," he declared, "a place where life will flourish, a new reflection of my love and glory." Before the gathered angels, he unveiled his vision. Galaxies spiraled into existence, stars burned with divine purpose, and planets spun in perfect harmony. On one world, Earth, life would flourish in its greatest splendor. The angels watched in awe as joy swelled in their hearts, but then God's words turned even more profound. "I will not only create this universe," he said. "On that world, I will create beings in my image and likeness. They will be called humans, a blend of flesh and spirit, heaven and earth. And more than that, I myself will become flesh. The second person of the Trinity, my Son, will take human form. His name will be Jesus Christ, and in that humanity you shall worship me." The silence that followed was overwhelming. God, the eternal and unchanging, was asking them to bow not only to his divine majesty, but to his human form, a face fragile, humble, and bound by flesh. And then, like a flame igniting the heavens, the angels erupted in awe and jubilation. The Creator's plan was so wondrous, so beyond comprehension, that many could not contain their joy. Heaven trembled with the magnificence of what was to come. But in one heart, the joy was replaced by rebellion, a rebellion that would forever change the cosmos. It was God's plan, majestic and incomprehensible, a revelation of love so profound that it shook the heavens. The angels, awestruck, acclaimed the Creator with hymns of joy, their hearts filled with the privilege of witnessing such divine mystery. Yet the mystery of the Incarnation was only the beginning. God revealed that humanity, created in his image, would fall into corruption, and to redeem them, he himself would take on flesh and endure crucifixion. Among the heavenly host, one figure stood apart. Lucifer, the brightest of all, neither moved nor joined in the jubilation. He remained still, his gaze distant, his expression veiled by an unfathomable storm within. The light around him, once a reflection of his splendor, now seemed unable to reach his heart. His eyes were deep, dark wells, and his silence echoed louder than the angels' songs. In that moment, something shattered within Lucifer. The idea of bowing before a human form, of worshipping God clothed in mortal flesh, was a humiliation he could not comprehend, let alone accept. Why, he thought, his mind spiraling, why would perfection lower itself? Why should beings of light, radiant and pure, kneel to creatures of flesh? The revelation of the crucifixion struck him like a blade. God would create humanity, knowing they would rebel. He would sacrifice himself for them, enduring pain and death at their hands. How could this be justice? Lucifer's pride could not reconcile the vision of the Creator, majestic and infinite, humbling himself to such a degree. To him, it was absurd, a cosmic folly. As the storm within him grew, so too did a question burning hotter than the sun. Why not me? For ages, Lucifer had been the most radiant, the closest to the divine throne. He was the morning star, the masterpiece of creation, the one angels revered and admired. Yet God had not chosen him. Instead, God chose to lower himself, to take on the frailty of human flesh. From this thought, bitterness was born, a bitterness that coiled around his heart like a serpent, choking the love and devotion he once held for the Creator. The moment came. God stood before the host of heaven, his presence radiant with divine glory. One by one the angels knelt, their voices rising in adoration, their hearts embracing the mystery of the incarnation. But not Lucifer. He stood rigid, his gaze fixed on the throne, his heart brimming with defiance. Slowly, he opened his lips and uttered a single word, a word that resounded through the heavens like thunder. No. God's eyes, filled with infinite sadness and love, rested on him. But Lucifer felt nothing but disdain. He repeated, this time with a voice that shook the celestial firmament, "No." His tone, cold and unyielding, carried the weight of a king passing judgment. The angels trembled, their harmony disrupted. How could the brightest, the purest among them, defy the Creator himself? How could he speak such blasphemy? Lucifer turned to the multitude, his gaze piercing, his words calculated and sharp. "Do you not see the folly in this?" he began, his voice as smooth as it was venomous. "God asks us to bow to a lesser form, to bend our knees before mortal flesh. This is not glory, it is degradation." The angels, stunned, listened. His words, laden with logic and persuasion, sank into their hearts like poisoned arrows. "This plan is flawed," he continued, his voice rising with conviction. "God, in his arrogance, has faltered. He demands that we, beings of pure light, lower ourselves to something inferior. Why should we, the radiant ones, humble ourselves? It is not we who have erred. It is God." The angels, bewildered, wavered. Lucifer's charisma, always a beacon, now became a weapon. His arguments were intoxicating, his defiance contagious. Some began to doubt. Was it truly just to bow to a human form? Was God asking the impossible? As whispers of rebellion spread, the heavens trembled. The harmony of eternity teetered on the brink of collapse. Then, amidst the chaos, a voice broke through like a sword slicing through darkness. "Who is like God?" The words, simple yet thunderous, came from Michael, a humble archangel of lesser rank. His purity, however, outshone titles and hierarchies. His exclamation carried a conviction that pierced the hearts of all who heard it. "Who is like God?" he repeated, his voice unwavering. In 3 words, Michael dismantled Lucifer's entire argument. No one, not even the morning star, could rival the Creator. It was a cry of humility, of absolute recognition of God's sovereignty and perfection. The angels trembled. Michael's words were a reminder of the truth they had nearly forgotten. The light of his purity awakened something within them, a clarity that had been clouded by Lucifer's eloquent defiance. Lucifer turned to Michael, his face a mask of icy disdain. But for the first time, his words faltered. The purity of Michael's declaration had struck at the core of his rebellion, exposing it for what it was: pride wrapped in reason, ambition cloaked in defiance. Heaven hung in silence, the celestial host caught between light and shadow, between truth and deception. Lucifer's rebellion had shaken the foundations of eternity, but Michael's humble cry brought them back to their source. In that moment, a choice was made, a choice that would divide heaven and alter the fabric of creation. Lucifer, the morning star, had fallen. The first shadow had been cast upon the heavens, and the great battle for eternity had begun. Lucifer heard Michael's cry, a simple exclamation, yet it struck him with the force of a divine thunderbolt. "Who is like God?" The words echoed through the heavens, unraveling the carefully woven strands of Lucifer's rebellion. He turned to Michael, his gaze blazing with icy fury and a flicker of disbelief. Until that moment, no one had dared to confront him so openly. Michael, smaller in stature, but radiating an unshakable courage, stepped forward. His voice, calm yet thunderous, was like lightning piercing the storm. "You are arrogant," Michael said, each word sharp as a sword. "Your light has become a shadow, trying to eclipse the Creator. Don't you see? You have placed yourself above God." Lucifer's pride quivered under the weight of those words. A wound had been opened, deep and raw, exposing the dark roots of his ambition for all to see. Rage and shame surged within him, crashing like violent waves against the walls of his heart. Struggling to maintain his composure, he met Michael's gaze with cold defiance. "You understand nothing," Lucifer spat, his voice trembling with restrained fury. "Are you so blind that you cannot see what God is asking of us? This is not love, it's humiliation. I, who was first in his glory, cannot bow before something so low, so inferior." His words, though laced with conviction, were distorted by bitterness. But Michael stood firm, unyielding. His eyes, steady as a flame, seemed to see straight into Lucifer's tormented soul. "No, Lucifer," Michael replied, his tone unwavering. "You are the one who doesn't understand love. This isn't about humiliation. It's about a love so profound that it humbles itself for the sake of others. God becomes flesh for us, not to diminish his glory, but to exalt all of creation. And you reject him not because he asks too much, but because your pride refuses to allow you to be anything less than first." Michael stepped closer, his voice soft but piercing, like a whisper that cuts through silence. "You've forgotten your place. You've forgotten that everything you are is a reflection of his glory. It's not God who lowers himself. It's your pride that raises you beyond what you are." Lucifer stood frozen, his mind a tempest of rage and denial. Michael's words were a mirror, and what Lucifer saw, reflected in them, was not the radiant being he believed himself to be, but a shadow twisted by resentment and arrogance. He couldn't bear it. Turning sharply, he walked away, his back straight and unyielding, but within him an inferno of anger burned brighter than ever. Alone, Lucifer wept, but not with sorrow. His tears were born of rage, a fury so consuming it left no room for remorse. His wounded pride festered, twisting into hatred. "How dare Michael?" he thought. "How dare he challenge me, the brightest of all?" And yet, deep within, a faint, unwelcome voice whispered the truth. Michael was right. It was this truth that tormented him most of all. Gathering himself, Lucifer began to whisper his doubts to others, his words like seeds planted in the fertile soil of uncertainty. "Can't you see that God asks the impossible of us?" he said, his voice low but brimming with conviction. "He asks us to renounce who we are, to bow to an inferior form. Why should beings of light kneel before creatures of clay? Are we to worship a crucified God, a broken body covered in blood and wounds?" His words resonated. One by one, angels began to listen. "Lucifer is right," they murmured. "God cannot ask this of us. It defies all reason." Doubt crept in, quiet but insidious, and with it came questions that no angel had dared to voice. What if God isn't who he claims to be? What if he is not the eternal creator, but merely a more powerful being, another Lucifer, greater only in degree? Lucifer didn't call for violence. His tone was not hateful. Instead, he spoke of dignity, of freedom, of preserving their greatness. He promised a realm where their light would shine unbound, where they would answer to no one but themselves. God gave us free will, he said, his voice rising with persuasive clarity. Why not use it? Why not be who we truly are? Why remain chained to a plan that diminishes us? Lucifer's following grew. It wasn't the lesser angels who joined him, but the brightest and most beautiful, the crown jewels of heaven, those endowed with the greatest wisdom and power. These were the ones Lucifer chose carefully, angels who, like him, yearned for more. They gathered in secret, their meetings charged with ambition and the promise of freedom. In one such gathering, Lucifer stood before them, his presence commanding, his words ablaze with passion. "We are the future," he proclaimed, his voice echoing like a storm. "We are the light that refuses to kneel. We will not let our essence be diminished beneath the shadow of an inferior form. If God will not give us the place we deserve, then we will take it ourselves." His words ignited something within his followers, a fervor that burned with the intensity of stars. Under Lucifer's leadership, the first army in heaven's history began to take shape. These angels, once the most loyal, most beloved, were now transformed into warriors of rebellion. Their radiance darkened with pride and ambition, their loyalty replaced by a hunger for independence. As whispers of rebellion spread, the harmony of heaven trembled. But amidst the rising tide of chaos, Michael stood firm, his resolve unshaken. Raising his sword high, he cried out once more, his voice like a beacon piercing the shadows, "Who is like God?" The cry echoed across the firmament, simple yet devastating in its truth. It shattered the illusions Lucifer had woven, reminding the doubters of the fundamental reality they had forgotten. No one, not even the morning star, could rival the Creator. Michael's words rekindled something in the hearts of many, a light that pushed back the creeping darkness. Those who had wavered began to remember their origin, their essence, and the unshakable glory of God. Lucifer, watching from the shadows, clenched his fists. His rebellion had begun, and though Michael's cry had momentarily halted its momentum, the morning star was not finished. The first battle in heaven was about to unfold, a clash that would forever alter the cosmos. Heaven had known only peace, but now it would know war. Michael stood before Lucifer's vast army, a figure of unmatched humility and unshakable strength. The odds were daunting. Lucifer's forces were numerous, mighty, and forged from the most radiant and powerful of the heavenly host. Yet Michael did not falter. His shield was faith, his sword was loyalty, and his cause was the Creator himself. He knew that his strength did not come from numbers or rank, but from a truth deeper than the stars, a truth that burned brighter than any rebellion. And so, the war between light and shadow reached its terrible crescendo. Lucifer, the morning star, once the most beautiful of all angels, had turned his divine radiance into a weapon of defiance. His rebellion, born of pride, now threatened to unravel the very fabric of creation. Brothers clashed against brothers, and with every strike, every resounding clash of their celestial blades, the heavens themselves trembled. The universe held its breath. The battle erupted with a fury that shook the foundations of heaven. On one side, Lucifer and his rebel army, their once pure light now twisted into a darkness that devoured. Their splendor, once a beacon of divine creation, had become a shadow of ambition and pride. Opposing them were the faithful angels, led by Michael, a small but indomitable figure, his resolve unyielding, his faith a towering force. Heaven, a realm once defined by peace and harmony, became a battlefield of unparalleled brilliance. Waves of fire and light collided like thunder, and the clash of swords illuminated the skies in bursts of radiant energy. Each blow sent ripples of power across the cosmos, lighting up the heavens like a storm of shooting stars. It was a war of light against shadow, of truth against defiance, of loyalty against rebellion. The fallen angels fought with a ferocity that seemed endless, their fury a manifestation of their inner torment. But the faithful angels battled with quiet determination, their strength drawn from the love and devotion they bore for their Creator. Their cause was not pride or power, it was a steadfast belief in the goodness of the light they served. At the forefront was Michael. His cry echoed across the celestial expanse, "Who is like God?" The words were both a challenge and a declaration, a thunderous rebuke of Lucifer's defiance. Michael's strength did not come from his rank or his brilliance, but from his unshakable faith. He fought not for himself, but for the light, for truth, for the Creator who had given them all their existence. In that faith, his strength seemed to grow boundless, as if the divine itself flowed through him. The loyal angels, emboldened by Michael's example, felt the presence of the Creator within them. It was a power that wrapped around them like armor, a reminder that they were not alone. They fought with a strength that transcended their own, a strength rooted in love, humility, and truth. Lucifer, enraged by Michael's resilience, rose on his wings, his form still terrible in its beauty. Shadows poured from him like a storm, darkening the battlefield. "I was the first," he roared, his voice trembling with anger. "I am the true light." But his words, though thunderous, rang hollow. The authority they once carried had crumbled, and the light within him, once a source of awe and reverence, had become a distorted shadow. Though his power was formidable, it could not eclipse the truth Michael carried like a pure and unyielding flame. Lucifer surged forward, his presence a tempest of rage and despair. Yet no matter how fiercely he fought, he could not overcome the quiet, steady strength of Michael and the faithful angels. Their light, though less dazzling, shone with a clarity and purity that Lucifer's rebellion could not match. The battle raged on, fierce and relentless. The heavens, wounded by the conflict, seemed to mourn the loss of their harmony. Angels who were not part of the fighting stood as silent witnesses, their hearts heavy with the weight of rebellion. The perfect peace that had defined heaven now lay in fragments, replaced by the chaos of war. Yet amid the destruction, hope endured. The faith of the loyal angels burned brighter with each passing moment. Their love for the Creator shone in every swing of their swords, in every step they took toward Lucifer's army. Their devotion was a light that no shadow could extinguish. At last, the tide began to turn. Michael, his sword raised high, advanced with a cry that resonated like thunder. "By God's power, fall, Lucifer!" In that moment, the rebellion broke. The shadows that had risen so fiercely began to fracture, their strength collapsing under the weight of truth and light. Lucifer's army, once so proud, began to falter. The rebel angels, a third of heaven's host, were cast out. Like stars torn from the sky, they fell, their descent a cascade of broken brilliance. Lucifer, the morning star, plummeted with them, his light extinguished, his splendor consumed by his own pride. The heavens, though scarred by the battle, began to mend, their harmony slowly returning. Yet the scars of rebellion remained, a reminder of the cost of ambition, of the peril of pride, and of the unyielding power of faith. The first war in heaven had ended, but its echoes would resound through eternity. It was a war that forever altered the celestial realm, a clash that revealed both the fragility and the strength of creation. Though Lucifer had fallen, his defiance left a mark on the universe, a shadow that would one day find its way to the hearts of humanity. Yet amid the sorrow and the scars, hope remained. Michael's cry, "Who is like God?" reminded all of heaven of the eternal truth. The Creator's light was unshakable, and no shadow could ever truly extinguish it. Lucifer became Satan, and with him, all who had followed his ambition were cast into the abyss. Heaven, once a symphony of perfect harmony, fell into a solemn silence, a silence heavy with the sorrow of an irreplaceable loss. The war had left deep scars, a wound in paradise that only the passage of eternity and the power of divine love could begin to heal. The faithful angels, though victorious, carried the weight of the battle on their souls. Yet they knew with unshakable certainty that light had triumphed. Truth, faith, and hope, virtues born of God's essence, had prevailed. In their victory, the angels rediscovered an eternal truth. Goodness always triumphs over evil, not by force or violence, but because goodness is the essence of God, a light that no shadow can extinguish. Pride, hatred, and ambition may rage like storms, but they are fleeting, fragile echoes before the eternal purity of love and faithfulness. As the heavens began to quiet, Michael's cry, "Who is like God?" echoed across the universe. It reverberated through every corner of creation, a timeless reminder that no brilliance, no ambition, no force could ever rival the infinite glory and love of the Creator. After the final clash, heaven opened to cast out the rebels. Lucifer, the morning star who had once walked among the fiery stones of God's holy mount, was hurled into the abyss along with his followers. It was a fall that shook the heavens. The brightest and most beautiful angels, whose radiance had rivaled the stars, were cast down, falling like meteors into the void. Their descent was not merely a physical one, it was a plummet into darkness, into a realm cut off from the light of God. The abyss was a place of chaos and desolation, a shattered echo of the divine order. It was not yet the final hell, but a state of utter isolation, where the glory and peace of heaven could no longer be felt. For Lucifer, now transformed into Satan, this separation was a punishment more excruciating than any physical torment. The wound of being severed from God, from the light and beauty of heaven, burned deeper than any blade. In this abyss, Satan and his fallen angels existed in a state of spiritual ruin. What was once a realm of perfect order became a place of chaos, where pride, hatred, and despair festered like an open wound. Yet even in his fall, Satan's pride refused to die. Instead, it twisted and reshaped itself into a new purpose, a dark and twisted mission. In his despair, Satan's gaze turned outward. If he could not reign in heaven, then he would destroy what God cherished most, creation itself. His hatred now fixated on humanity, the beings God would create in his own image. "If I cannot bask in God's glory, neither will they," Satan vowed. The thought of dragging humans, God's beloved, into darkness gave him a bitter sense of satisfaction. They, who had been granted the love and honor he believed he deserved, would become the targets of his vengeance. His mission was clear. If he and his fallen angels could no longer dwell in God's presence, he would make sure that humanity would not either. He would corrupt the purity of God's creation, turning his masterpiece into a reflection of his own fall. Humanity's freedom, their capacity for love and greatness, became the very tools Satan sought to exploit. From that moment, evil took shape, not merely as the absence of good, but as an active, organized force. Satan and his demons sought to sow doubt, incite pride, and kindle despair in human hearts, the same forces that had led to their own downfall. Yet even as this darkness began to spread, God's justice and love remained constant. The expulsion of Lucifer and his followers was not merely a punishment, it was an act of divine justice. Those who had chosen rebellion, who had rejected the light of God, could no longer dwell within it. In his infinite love, God had given them freedom, and in his justice he honored their choice, even when that choice led to darkness. Separation was the consequence, but even in their exile, God's love lingered. Though they were cast out, they were not obliterated, for the Creator's mercy allowed them the freedom to exist, even in the shadows they had chosen. In this act, the balance between love and justice was perfectly revealed, a justice that required separation and a love that refused to annihilate. Satan's fall was not the end of the story, but the beginning of an eternal conflict. His hatred for humanity became his driving force, his rebellion an ongoing war against the Creator. From the moment of his expulsion, he sought to lead humanity into the same rebellion that had consumed him, to sow seeds of pride and doubt, to darken the light within every soul. Yet his influence, though potent, was limited. Goodness, which flows from God, remained the stronger force. The battle that began in heaven spilled onto earth, playing out in the hearts of humanity. Every temptation, every moment of doubt, every spiritual battle is a reflection of that first war, a war that continues to echo through time. But even as evil whispers in the darkness, God's grace shines brighter. His love, His justice, and His truth remain unshakable, a constant reminder that no matter how loud or defiant evil may be, it cannot prevail. Goodness, born of God's essence, will always have the final say. Lucifer's fall became the first chapter in the story of the battle between good and evil, a battle that continues to this day. His rebellion serves as a reminder of the peril of pride and the cost of ambition. Yet it also highlights the invincibility of divine love, the enduring power of faith, and the certainty that light will always triumph. On earth, as in heaven, Michael's question resounds, "Who is like God?" It is a cry of truth, a declaration of faith, and an eternal reminder that God's love and light are unassailable. The scars of rebellion remain, but so too does the certainty that goodness, once challenged, will shine even brighter. For no shadow, no matter how deep, can extinguish the light of the Creator. Lucifer, now transformed into Satan, has devoted himself to a single, relentless purpose: the corruption of God's creation. From the moment he fell, he has roamed the shadows, seeking to dismantle what the Creator has built. The Bible is filled with accounts of his schemes, moments where Satan emerges as the ultimate tempter, challenging not only mortals, but also the greatest figures of faith. Among these, one encounter stands above all, a confrontation that encapsulates the heart of resistance to evil: Satan's attempt to tempt Jesus in the wilderness. After fasting for 40 days and nights, Jesus stands alone in the desert, weakened yet resolute. It is here that Satan approaches, his words a seductive melody meant to unravel even the strongest will. He offers 3 temptations, each crafted to appeal to the core of human desire. "If you are the Son of God," Satan begins, pointing to the barren stones, "tell these stones to become bread." A whisper to feed hunger, to misuse divine power for personal comfort. Then he takes Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple. "Throw yourself down," he suggests, his voice like silk, "for it is written, He will command His angels concerning you." A taunt to demonstrate power, to bend angels to His will for spectacle. Finally, Satan unveils the vast kingdoms of the world, glittering and golden. "All this I will give you," he declares, his voice now a dark crescendo, "if you bow down and worship me." The ultimate temptation, power, glory, and dominion, all for the price of allegiance. But Jesus, unwavering, answers each temptation with words of Scripture, cutting through the darkness like a blade of light. "Man shall not live on bread alone," he responds. "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." And finally, with the authority of eternal truth, he commands, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God, and serve Him only." In this encounter, Jesus demonstrates that true power lies not in miracles, wealth, or earthly dominion, but in obedience to and love for God. Satan's allure is shattered by faith and humility, leaving a timeless lesson. No temptation, no matter how seductive, can overcome a soul rooted in the divine. Long before the wilderness confrontation, Satan had already challenged the essence of faith in the story of Job. With a cunning mix of arrogance and defiance, Satan stands before God and asks, Does Job fear God for nothing? His accusation is sharp, questioning not just Job's faith, but the very nature of love and devotion. Satan suggests that Job's loyalty is transactional, born not of love, but of blessings. To prove his point, Satan is permitted to strip Job of everything, his wealth, his children, even his health. What unfolds is a trial of unimaginable suffering, a test designed to break Job's spirit and shatter his faith. Through anguish and despair, Job wrestles with doubt, questioning God's justice but never abandoning his belief. In the end, Satan's plan fails. Job's enduring faith, though tested by fire, emerges as a beacon of hope. His story reveals a profound truth. Faith is not a response to prosperity, but a deep-rooted loyalty that persists even in the face of suffering. Job's defiance of despair becomes an eternal testament to the resilience of faith against evil. But Satan's first great act of corruption came even earlier, in the Garden of Eden, the perfect paradise where God set the stage for humanity's story. Here, Lucifer saw his chance to infect creation with the same rebellion that had consumed him. Taking the form of a serpent, a creature of cunning and deceit, Satan approached Eve with a voice as soft as a whisper, yet as deadly as poison. "Did God really say, 'You must not eat from any tree in the garden'?" he asked, planting the seed of doubt. His method was subtle, not forceful, as he wove suspicion into Eve's heart. With carefully chosen words, he promised what seemed irresistible, divinity itself. "You will be like God, knowing good and evil," he said, his voice dripping with false wisdom. It was a lie, but one that offered a taste of power, the allure of knowledge untethered from obedience. Eve succumbed, and through her Adam fell as well. With their disobedience, the perfection of Eden was shattered. Humanity, in its quest to be more, became less, separated from the Creator by the shadow of sin. In a single act, Satan achieved his plan, to bring the celestial conflict into the human heart, to sow rebellion within God's most beloved creation. Satan's influence did not end with Eden. His presence lingers still, an unseen adversary in every moment of temptation and doubt. From the trials of Job to the temptations of Jesus, the echoes of his rebellion resound through time, a dark force attempting to sever humanity from the source of all goodness. Yet the Bible reminds us that evil, no matter how insidious, cannot triumph. In every act of resistance, in every soul that clings to faith and love, the light of God shines brighter than the shadows. Jesus' victory in the wilderness, Job's endurance in suffering, and the countless stories of human perseverance against despair all point to an unshakable truth. Good will always have the final word. Satan's ultimate fate is woven into the story of Revelation, where the battle between good and evil reaches its final climax. Though his influence persists, his defeat is certain. His rebellion, which began in the heavens, will end in his ultimate downfall. Even now, his schemes, though relentless, are bounded by the sovereignty of God. He cannot force humanity to turn from their Creator. He can only whisper, tempt, and sow doubt. And with every choice to resist, with every act of faith, humanity declares the eternal truth first spoken by Michael in heaven: "Who is like God?" Satan's story, from his fall to his relentless pursuit of corruption, serves as both a warning and a reminder. It is a warning of the destructive power of pride and ambition, but also a reminder of the invincible strength of divine love and faith. For no matter how deep the shadow, the light of God will always prevail. In the Bible's final book, Revelation, the ultimate fate and role of Satan are revealed in a narrative of breathtaking imagery and prophetic power. This story, charged with celestial drama, portrays Satan as the great dragon, humanity's ultimate adversary and God's most relentless foe. Once the morning star, now the embodiment of darkness, Satan's mission of corruption continues to the end of time, where the final confrontation between good and evil reaches its most ferocious climax. Revelation unfolds a vision of the end times, a period when evil reaches its zenith, casting its shadow over creation. Satan, described as the great dragon, is also named the ancient serpent, a direct link to the deceiver in Eden who introduced sin to humanity. His transformation from Lucifer, the brightest angel, to this monstrous form embodies the destructive and deceptive power he has wielded since his fall. The dragon is not merely a symbol of evil, he is the architect of chaos, the great deceiver who seeks to lead the whole world astray. In the final days, his fury knows no bounds. With cunning and malice, Satan intensifies his efforts, using every tool at his disposal to corrupt humanity and challenge God's divine order. His mission is clear: to destroy all that is good and separate humanity from its creator. Revelation describes a period of tribulation, a time of great suffering and catastrophic trials. Humanity is divided, with some remaining faithful to God and others succumbing to the seductions of evil. In this era, Satan's role as the great deceiver takes center stage. He becomes the accuser, the one who sows doubt, despair, and temptation, whispering lies to pull even the faithful away from the light. John's vision captures the culmination of this celestial conflict as Satan faces Michael and the heavenly armies one final time. This battle is not a new conflict, but the continuation of the war that began in heaven when Lucifer rebelled and was cast out. Now, as time itself nears its end, the conflict reaches its most intense and decisive moment. Satan's efforts to corrupt creation are not limited to deception alone. Revelation depicts him as the mastermind behind the beast and the false prophet, sinister forces that rise on earth to spread chaos and idolatry. Through these agents, Satan seeks to establish a counterfeit kingdom, a twisted parody of God's divine rule. This false kingdom is built on lies, tyranny, and oppression, with Satan at its center, demanding worship that belongs only to God. His ultimate ambition, to usurp God's glory, is laid bare. Even in this perverse realm, Satan's hunger for power and worship drives him as he attempts to lead humanity into spiritual ruin. Yet despite his schemes, Revelation reveals that Satan's defeat is inevitable. After the tribulation and the last battle, Satan is captured and hurled into the lake of burning sulfur, a place of eternal punishment. This act of divine justice is final. In the lake of fire, Satan is rendered powerless, unable to reach humanity or influence creation ever again. This moment symbolizes more than punishment. It is the ultimate victory of good over evil. The dragon's rebellion, which once shook the heavens, is brought to an end, and with it, all the forces of darkness are dismantled forever. God's justice prevails, ensuring that evil is separated from creation for all eternity. Satan's fall in Revelation carries profound meaning. It is the ultimate testament to the power of God's love and justice, a reminder that evil, no matter how powerful it may seem, is fleeting and finite, while God allows evil to act within limits, granting humanity the freedom to choose. The end of time marks the conclusion of that allowance. At the final reckoning, when all choices have been made, evil is vanquished and good reigns supreme. Satan's defeat is not merely the downfall of an adversary, it is the restoration of divine order. His ambition to rival God, his hatred and rebellion, become symbols of a light extinguished by its own pride. Yet his failure underscores an eternal truth. Love, justice, and goodness are invincible. They are the essence of God, and no shadow, no matter how vast, can overcome them. For humanity, the prophecy of Satan's defeat offers a message of hope. Though the forces of darkness may seem overwhelming, their power is limited, and their time is short. The final battle assures us that good, rooted in the eternal nature of God, will always prevail. Evil is a storm, fierce but temporary, while the light of God shines forever. In the present day, Revelation reminds us of the ongoing struggle between good and evil. Satan continues to tempt, deceive, and corrupt, yet his fate is already sealed. Every act of faith, every choice for light over darkness, reinforces the truth that evil's rebellion will fail. The story of Lucifer, from his fall to his ultimate defeat, is not merely a cautionary tale. It is a profound declaration of God's glory, the resilience of faith, and the promise of redemption. In the end, good will triumph, love will endure, and God's light will shine eternal. As the great cosmic tale unfolds, Michael's cry continues to echo across the ages. Who is like God? This is the question that silences rebellion, shatters pride, and restores hope. It is a timeless declaration of the Creator's unassailable power and love. Lucifer's rebellion may have scarred creation, but it could never break it. For every shadow cast by his fall, God's light burns brighter. Revelation assures us of this ultimate truth. Though the conflict between good and evil may rage, the final victory has already been written. Goodness will reign, and God's love will shine unchallenged, now and forever.